Benvenuti alla diciannovesima puntata di ContempoCast. Io sono Mauro Sgarbi e oggi edizione particolare perché ci troviamo a Pescocanale in occasione del Festival Emigrarte 2025 e ho l'onore e il piacere di stare con un artista veramente eccezionale che adoro tantissimo, Jasmine aka Hera, da Francoforte direttamente. E allora presto parleremo del suo mondo, della sua arte e di quello insomma che interessa a Era. A presto, sigla!
Contempo. Contempo. Contempo.
Eccoci qui tornati. Allora, siamo qui, come dicevo prima, in occasione del Festival Emigrarte 2025. Adesso switcherò in inglese perché Jasmine parla inglese, ma presto parlerà anche italiano, anzi abruzzese, visto che siamo qui a Pescocanale. Quindi, hi Jasmine, thank you very much for being here. And so usually this podcast, let's say it talks about contemporary, the contemporary world, and I like to, through the sensitivity of the artist, let's say see how the artist sees, because in this precise moment I think we are in a very strange position in history with all the things that are happening around. So this is why I wanted to do this podcast, to understand probably from the sensitivity of an artist, how does he or she sees the world. So but first of all, usually I begin asking, how did you become what you are now? What was your path? How did you begin? With which studies you've done? And let's say step by step, how did you become what you are now?
For the people who don't know me, I will tell you where I am now.
Okay.
And I'm one of the fewer female representatives of the art genre street art, and I have been working in the urban art with using spray cans for 25 years now. And
Wow.
When I started to use spray cans, that's really my medium. That really was the amplifier of my inner voice, because of the pressure, because of the way it functions, and because of the connotation that it has something to do with illegality. That's why I chose to specialize on this tool. But I also use different techniques from the urban art world. But when I started, it was graffiti. And now it has become street art. It has morphed. It has found more of a definition. And when I was a little kid growing up in Frankfurt, this work I do was not even a job. It didn't exist. It didn't exist in the field, in the big range of the different ways to do art and what's it called? Visual art.
Mm-hmm.
It was non-existent. So me and my life, I basically helped shape the kind of career that other people now think of a normal career, but when I was young, it didn't exist. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I became part of a movement when it started to happen, and I'm still part of the movement, even though it's not the first. I mean, it was the first international art movement. It's not the first anymore. After that, digital art became the next global thing, and maybe now there's already something else. But street art was really the first global art movement because of the connectivity through social media, and I was at the right time in the right place, and that's why I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
So you said that you started as a graffiti artist, but were you doing the letters, like writing your name or your tag?
Yeah, I think that's actually something I thought would be the way when I started, and the first times I tried my luck using the graffiti known alphabets, there's so many, but I knew of the wild style and the bubble style, and those were the basics for me. And I have a little journal, like a diary, from when I was 12, where I was practicing for pages and pages.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to do different styles of the alphabet, and I was trying this really hard with just the markers I had, and I understood that there was graffiti at that age in the early 90s, but I had no access. I was only an observer. I was only the audience, and I thought it was probably, I had an idea of who does this, but I was never in touch with anyone who actually went out and used a spray can. It took until I was 18 until I finally met somebody who said, yes, come on, I will show you.
On the streets?
It was in a space that was open to public. It was a so-called Hall of Fame in a legal space in Wiesbaden in Germany. And Wiesbaden was, to me and to a couple other European artists, graffiti writers at that time, was a very important place because of the Wall Street meeting. That was one of the first really big international graffiti meetings.
Jam, like something like that, jam festival.
Exactly. It was a festival that displayed the 4 different elements of hip hop. So graffiti was part of it, and then there was rap, and then there was DJing, and then there was also breakdance. So it was based on hip hop culture, subculture still at that point, in Germany at least, and there was a lot of funding for it from brands that used festivals like these to dress artists up and so back.
What year was it?
So I moved to Wiesbaden in the year 2000, and that was the last year of the Wall Street meeting, and then they rebranded, and it was called Meeting of Styles. Okay. Because of legal issues, and I think somebody actually died because they fell through a roof. There was a really big. There was a lot of noise, and they were revolting against the police and ambulance that came through to help the guy, but then all these graffiti writers, they didn't identify that there was a real problem. So anyway, so it was politics that led to the meeting of styles, developing from Wall Street meeting. But when I was there, I saw that there's so much power in this field. And by power, I mean, I felt like a lot of young people with their tools were expressing themselves in a way that you didn't learn at school. So it was an autodidactic movement, which I found very, very, very relatable. And there was a hierarchy and there was an authority, but it was something I understood because it was so archaic, actually. It was so tribal that I understood how it works. It's quantity over quality, because the more you're present, even though if it's shit, but if you're present, then that, and then the larger the crew, the bigger the guys, the tougher they are. So it's very tribal. And there's not a lot of room for females in this tribe. But I was always somebody who wanted a challenge. Okay. So I accepted the challenge, and I said...
And how did you get in?
I think I was being very obnoxious, and I totally forgot. Of course, I just thought I was cool, but I learned last year. I've met somebody who has known me for a long time, and he told me, "You are so weird. You came to us and you said, 'Hey, do you have space on your wall?'"
Oh, really?
I was like, "I did."
This was a guy of the
Yes,
like
from
25 years
exactly.
ago.
Yeah. His name is Krixel, Markus Christel, who ran a magazine named Publikat, and Publikat, Style File magazine, and he had a publishing house named Publikat. But Style File magazine was European and international. It was the standard to have your pieces in magazines, because it was before social media. So maybe there were blogs, but you had magazines, and then the graffiti shops and hip hop shops, they exchanged magazines. You know, you produce one in this country, you produce in this country, and then you swap. So that's how people knew of each other's work, unless they traveled. And this guy, Krixel, who had the most important magazine in Germany, he told me, you know, in the year, I don't know, 2001 or something, I was there and I said, "Hey, can I paint with you?" And he was like, "Okay, I guess." Because, yeah, I didn't know any better. So I think I was pretty... You might say it's a toy move, but I was just very open about it. And also, I think I was lucky because I painted something in a legal spot, and I painted a girl. And I remember there were two young men walking past me, and they said, "Oh, look how cute, there's a girl with a spray can." And when I heard this, it clicked, and I did what I do to this day. I reacted to what was brought to me. So I reacted to this input. And then I picked it up by writing next to the girl that I painted, "Oh, look, the poor girl doesn't even know how to hold the can right."
Oh, you've written
Yeah,
this near
exactly.
on your
Next to my
first
piece.
thing.
Exactly, yeah. Well, one of the very first.
the
Yeah,
first.
yeah, exactly. So, and then I heard a voice behind me, and there was a guy saying, "Yes, show those graffiti chauvinists." And then I talked to the guy, and it turned out that this was the founder of the Meeting of Styles. This was the founder of Wall Street Meeting. And he just was there on the day where I said this, and he listened to the whole thing, and he said, "Hey, I see where this is going. There is a Meeting of Styles, or there's another festival in Almere in the Netherlands next week. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah." So, and from there, I was always open to communicate, to use communication in my work, always spontaneous, never with a sketch, nothing, always spontaneous. To use this as a meeting, for me, as a point to meet people and other opinions and react and not be shy about how I react. And that's how I grew, I think, very fast in terms of style and confidence. So
you started already doing you started with a puppet. I understood.
Yeah, like a girl that I drew. I used to do very illustrative. I still do illustrative work, but it was figures that had nothing to do with realism. It was very minimal. I had no money, so I afforded maybe black and white and maybe another color, but it was very basic. But I was always just ready to not create a big piece, but do one meaningful figure. Mm-hmm. And so most of them were females, and I responded to the optics, the looks of the present depiction of women in the genre. And it was very sexist, it was very simple, it was very pornographic. It was, the big tits, no head, or, just, as I said, it was kind of it was so, there was no real woman there. It was more like toys, sex toys, basically.
You wanted to represent like
a woman, like a full woman. So a full woman, meaning I also painted a pregnant woman, or I painted an elderly woman. So I painted different versions of women. So I think I also chose ones that had tiny titties and like big hips and were not matching the visual stereotypes for sexy back then. And and I stood out doing this so that people were like, oh, okay, we're looking for something new, and new means also recognizable. It's not just new, but it's also something. So there were festivals in Europe that were interested to boost their numbers in terms of female featured artists. So I was okay with being the quota woman, kind of, So I got invited to a festival. The biggest one I got invited to, which made a huge difference in my career, was in Spain, where I painted next to Lumit, where I painted next to there was Os Gêmeos from Brazil. I was a big fan of their work because it was all so different from the US American influences, and then the stuff that Germany was copying, but it was also different from the beautiful things the Spanish crews were doing. So Os Gêmeos were also there. It was in 2004, and a Maclaim crew from Germany, but also other just very well known. I mean, an artist lineup that was amazing, and I got to be there, and that was a huge step up, and I think I was there because I was a girl.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
Because you were talking about 2004, and still social media. Facebook wasn't still there.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably MySpace, but no, not even MySpace. So I think that probably, how many girls were in the scene?
There were girls before me, and it was definitely Miss Van, and
Miss
Miss
Van,
Van was definitely there, and she impressed me already. She was back then. I think she still was with Tilt, so it was like a couple, and then there was Fafi, but then after a while she kind of stopped and took a break. But they were two French girls who were active. Then there was Mickey from the Netherlands, and Mickey Larocque. She was also dating a graffiti artist, but also, had her own style, and she was there before me. But I knew of Lady Pink, obviously, through the Martha Cooper books, but it was, all those women were pretty singular. So whenever I knew of a country, I knew of 10 guys and 1 girl, maybe. Yeah. So it was more or less, I thought there had to be more, because also you didn't know by the names. You couldn't really tell. Of course, there were more women in the absolute anonymous place. For example, in Frankfurt in the 90s, there was a female writer named Mirage. And when I learned that it's a woman, I was like, that's awesome, because I loved the work. It was different somehow.
Because you saw first her works on the walls before seeing
exactly.
her.
And then there was also, and then I came across something that was super interesting. There was in Frankfurt, there was an old, I think that was in the late 90s, early 2000, there was a paste up by Swoon. And it was so bizarre because I stumbled across it and it's like, this is not graffiti. What is it? I don't know. I took a photo, and later, many years later, I found out it was by Swoon from the States. And that it really, it stood out to me because I collected those moments when I was amazed that, yes, that's another girl. Yes, this might be the same energy I have. Maybe I'll meet them at one point. So I think my challenge in this whole thing was I did not want to compete with the guys, but I wanted to continue until I meet within the tribe of urban art my people, which were a little bit more on the soft side, a little bit less interested in the adrenaline, a little bit more interested in the quality, in choosing a time and a legal space where I can say something with less aggression, because I'm such an aggressive person. I am.
You are aggressive?
Yes, you can see from my eyes I'm crazy. No, I came to this space because there was so little There was so little love for the people in uniform, you know, for the police, for those guys who basically, you know, do what they're told. And I come from that space. I feel safe in that space where we go on common sense, and we don't go on, you know, the chief tells me to arrest you, so I arrest you. So I don't like these robot people who go by, you know, who follow commands blindly. And so that's why I felt safe in the space.
So, when you began painting on the walls, where you began in Frankfurt, painting
In
the walls
Wiesbaden.
Wiesbaden, apart from the festivals,
It was
which are the more like. Did you go out at night painting?
just for a little bit, but it wasn't really my
trains.
No, I knew that I wouldn't be fast enough, so I tried to. I had very good friends who went out all the time, and I loved their work. I really loved their work, but they really dug into their negative side to do it. The whole anger. They tapped into the anger. They tapped into all the feelings, the warrior moments, you know, and that's when they went out and they did their stuff. But I knew it's not sustainable for me. I don't think I can do it. I thought I could do it a little bit, but it would drain me too much. It would really lead me into a sphere where maybe I will harm someone, I will harm myself or something. I will do stupid stuff. And so I was worried that it's not healthy.
Because you said that you are still a aggressive person.
Absolutely.
So didn't you find the need to, let's say, burst your aggression on a wall, painting something?
Yeah, but for me it was even better to find walls that would last, that would have my type of commentary, like social commentary, my philosophy, my questions. You know, I thought when I say I accepted the challenge, I was looking to make a mark in whatever city and keep it up as long as possible. And in order to do that, you either paint a huge production at a Hall of Fame, or you travel to a lot of places and you do it, or you travel to festivals, or you actually approach people who own walls and then you say, hey, can I paint your wall? And then you manage to get your thoughts out there, and people might not like it. They think, oh my God, it's too sad, it's too melancholic, it's too dark. But for me, it was really important to show that side of things. So that was the challenge. Just a quick example, when I paint, I usually don't show a sketch. So usually I travel only if it's required. I usually also tell people, hey, do you want to have a sketch? Well, then it costs more. If you trust me, then we can go on a different basis. And that comes from the fact that I don't want to be stuck to rules, even my own rules. If I make a sketch, I'm kind of stuck to, you know, that authority. So exactly. So I remember one time, it was very early in I think it was 2005 or 6, when I got to work at a school and I made some money, not a lot, but I got a piece that would stay up for a long time. And then the teachers said, that's too dark for the kids. That's a huge rat. You painted a huge rat, or you painted this big chacal type of thing, this jackal.
What was it? It was on a school?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I said, so what? You know, have you not seen Harry Potter? It's pretty dark, so kids can handle it. And also, not everything is toothpaste smiles and everything's perfect. There are kids who struggle, and if they see something they can relate to, or something that scares them, but they have the time to make friends with the dark side, maybe it helps them in the future instead of hiding. So that was the bigger challenge. That was the goal, to do something that people might find disturbing or might find a bit dark, or just not as pretty as they would like, and have it stay up for a long time. And for me, it was the way to do it, the legal, like, street art way.
Because that was with the permission.
Exactly. It was with permission, but not without fight. So that means if you get a wall and you get the permission, it can still mean that people around the neighborhood will say, "Oh, but that's so ugly."
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then you still fight.
Yeah.
You don't fight the police, but you still fight for what you want to say. And so it's still what I think is, it was still a very therapeutic way for me to do things that maybe some people don't understand, or the style I developed. There are a lot of drips, so some people will say, "Oh no, it looked so pretty before, but now it's all shit," and you'll be like, "Oh, thank you so much." And you have to have real thick skin if you keep hearing the same things, like, "Oh yeah, but can you clean it up?" And it's like, "Well, do you understand the message?" "Yeah." "Well, then it doesn't matter if it's clean or not, right?" And I'm like, "Oh well." But so I've painted all over the world now, pretty much. And believe me, there's always somebody who knows that this is not a good piece of art. And they will tell you.
Oh, yeah.
They will make sure. But still, to find a way to say things. And I said social political because I'm not about geopolitical things that are a little bit above my grasp. But because I come from a pretty very low income background, and my network with my parents, they came from 2 different cultures, so that means I don't really have national pride. I don't have roots really, so I am already a little bit displaced culturally. So for me it was very, very important to paint something in places that can be understood by people like me, because I'm not the only one like this. People who don't identify in Germany with the blonde, blue-eyed Heidi Klum, whatever image, but somebody who is a bit different, darker, but also mentally a bit darker, maybe.
Because your father is from Pakistan and your mother is German.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the stereotype of the blonde German and thing. But was this something that probably enhanced the dark side you're talking about?
I think it definitely doesn't help when a child sees that there are people who don't respect their father just because he has a darker skin tone than them. And I actually was very scared for my father a lot in the 80s and 90s still. I mean, and now again, we're back to celebrating Nazi ideas. So it's very, very sad. And I'm again scared for my father. But in the social housing I was in with my family, and I have a younger sister, there was one obvious neo-Nazi living there. She had her shaved head, and she was always, spitting on the floor when people passed by. It was, the rest of the house was all Turkish people, Tunisian, Moroccan, Italian people. But then there was this one lady, the one German, and she hated all of us.
Really?
Yeah, and I was seriously scared that she might do something to my father, to us, or something. And these are things when you grow up with this, that you don't belong to the majority, and you think, well, who would fight for me? So nobody. And the idea then with my connection with graffiti was also like, well, if you want to change something, you have to do it yourself. So just go out, get your hands dirty, and spread a message that you want to see, or find the audience that connects with your way of thinking. So that's why I was, a lot of the first work that I did was very feminist, because I felt very cheated by life. I thought, well, first of all, my skin is different, and then I'm also this fragile, weak woman that guys want to take advantage of, or also women want to take advantage of. And I felt, super miserable, really. And I thought the only way I can feel safe is if I connect, myself to a guy, if I become someone's girlfriend, or if I become someone's wife or something. The first things I did with, when I traveled with Manuel Girolis, the founder of Meeting of Styles, he took me to New York, I think 2004, 2003 or 2004.
So at the beginning.
Yeah, and we were in New York and we painted a community hall, community center. With it was a project run by Pose 2 from New York, old school graffiti writer, and he invited us, and he invited another Belgian artist who's now a famous film star.
What's his name?
Yeah, I'm thinking something with the Z. I have to. It will come to me. But it was a group, and then Jews there was a writer from Amsterdam. So it was a Belgium and Amsterdam, 2 Germans, and we were traveling, and we got invited to a couple of different projects. And then in one project in Yonkers, New York, at the end there was this guy he said, "Wait, you're not married to the guy, to Manuel?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Why are you here then?" I said, "Oh,
I'm an artist."
Because what? Well, because I wanted to paint. And he said, yeah, but you're traveling with guys? It's so bizarre, what a weird traditional, like old school way of thinking. But he said, "Oh, okay, that's so strange." Yeah,
strange to hear it from an artist. Was it an artist?
Yeah, but graffiti artist. So
yeah,
I mean, again, it's very, as I said, it's a very tribal community. So for them, a singular woman in the sphere is like, makes no sense,
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a couple of those moments, and then I worked with Herakut from Maclaim Crew in a duo, and I worked with him for so many years, and even to this day, people said, "Oh yeah, but you were married, right? You were a couple." And I said, it's funny because you booked the room for us. It was 2 rooms, don't you remember? And he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, no, we were not a couple. We were traveling as best friends. And still, for them, it wasn't easy to understand that there is a woman doing this basically on
her own, which is not tied to like a husband or a boyfriend.
Or I was not an assistant to somebody either, So that's another thing.
Yeah.
So I was not a volunteer. I was not an assistant. I went there to have my own messages out. So that means a lot of the first half of my career, I think the themes were on this, responding to this, very misogynist field. And
I imagine that it had to be hard because all these things, because I think that probably you were judged before your art because you were a woman, probably. I think.
And there are things, of course, that are so easy to throw at a woman. For example, the word diva, once you say what you want and you don't want, you're a diva. And then this guy, Nash, he died early this year, or I think last year. Nash was from the Netherlands, and I saw him very early in my career. And then at some point at a festival in Sarajevo. And then at some point, somebody said, "Oh yeah, this guy Nash, he said, by the way, Nash, rest in peace."
Hey Nash.
But still,
peace.
But still, you called me a fame bitch. I will not forget.
Nash.
Exactly.
Probably he's in purgatory now. And he's very sorry of what he told you.
But I'm just saying, those are things that I remember because I'm a fame whore. I'm a fame bitch. All these things are so easy to say.
They're not nice.
they're not nice, and they're so handy, they're so easy on people's tongue if they see a woman in a certain situation. And so that's why again, I painted to comment on the energy out there, and a lot of times it had to do with this. And I think also for women in the 20s, that's a pretty common theme. When I look at pop music these days and all, it's always the struggle with you. On one hand, you try to be a sexual being and try to be beautiful and try to be appealing, and at the same time, you don't want to be extorted. You want to be, you still want to decide. And it's still to this day. I mean, we have, I don't listen to pop music, but pop culture is something I take interest in. And even to this day, whenever anyone tries to show skin, they are blamed as a woman. They're blamed, oh, that's how you get the likes, or that's you're doing it for the clout, for the exactly. And so even amazing artists. I was talking to a friend of mine from Brazil, and the Pichação culture, the very amazing work these illegal writers do with go climbing up on the buildings, the high-rise buildings, and then working vertically with the writing,
with the ropes,
with the ropes, but also sometimes climbing. And what they do is called picho, and what they do is it's been adapted by European artists, and predominantly Berlin artists really took the Pichação work into their oeuvre, and their women are still always blamed if they wear short pants, like, oh, you're just showing your ass. And nobody thinks, well, but she's hiking, like, crazy stories, and she does amazing work, but she's wearing, in the summer, she's wearing shorts, just like you are not wearing a shirt when you paint in the heat. So why is this different? Why is one called a whore or clickbait, and one is like, oh yeah, that's a respected artist? So to this day, even though it's not the major theme in my work, but to this day I follow the whole thing, and there's still no solution, no equality there.
Yeah, I think it has still
some ways,
some work to do on this. But I think that it changed a lot since the beginning, because also the world has changed. Because I can imagine also speaking with some other graffiti artists. I mean, you are probably one of the most the ones that began doing this really in the early stage, where graffiti was not even, street art was not popular, let's say. So I think that doing graffiti during those days when they were not popular, the mentality that was there was really different from the mentality now on the scene, because now it's so popular.
Yeah, definitely there's a very positive impact just by the numbers, because so many more women dare to go into public arts, and I'm really just talking about urban art. I have no idea how it is with academic arts and installations in public sphere. I don't know. I only know about the urban art, and the urban art genre has picked up speed so much. There's a very so much higher beautiful percentage of women now present, and non-binary people, but also at the same time you are thinking of the ones that are visible, that are on the festivals, that have the big machinery. Of course you're much safer if you are on a lift when you go up 50 meters, because nobody knows if you're a woman or a man if you're up there. So then you're safe. But the moment you get down, then there are still people who will treat you in a whatever misogynist way the country sees fit, So that means, yes, the numbers are better. But for example, for women who don't work in the big spaces, I talked to women in New York 3 years. I did a jam. I organized a jam that was predominantly women, female artists from, it was 13 women, 7 different countries. And then I asked them, what were your worst experiences while painting? And one said, one New Yorker artist said, well, I was on the ladder, I was painting something, and it was a mix between graffiti and street art. So there was some words, I mean, there was some styles, so letters, and then she was doing a character. And then there was a guy, and he came up and he started masturbating under the ladder she was on.
Really?
That was in New York. And of course you can say, oh yeah, New York, they're crazy people. Yeah, but
Yeah, but
it's just, there's no respect. And that's one woman. But there are so many stories where you work all day. Just last week in Montreal, I worked for 10 days or something, 8 days on a mural. Then I come down on the last day. There's one guy helping to take my machine, my lift, out of the picture so I could take a final shot. So he drove the machine off, and I still continue to do little details with the spray can, and somebody walks by and congratulates the guy on his wall, and they say, oh man, good wall, beautiful. And the guy says, no, I'm not the artist, she's the artist. And the guy says, oh, I don't care what she does, because he thought I was just, I don't know, fixing something, and I don't care what she does, but you did great.
Really?
What? Yeah. So it's just,
even in front of the evidence.
yes,
because that
it's
guy was saying-
exactly, and that's what I mean. It's just, it doesn't fit in their image, and they are not shy to tell you. And it's just like, thank you again. And there are so many things like this. I mean, I was in places. I was in Hong Kong, 2012. They didn't even look at me. They looked at the guy I was traveling with. Like they think I'm the assistant, so they talk to the other guy, and it's just a lot of times it's very frustrating. Oh, what beautiful artist, Lydia Cao from Spain. I had her work in a project of mine because I also curate, and I always make sure it's 50% women in a hotel. She's painting a room. It was while the hotel was being built, and there were builders present, builders from East Europe. I didn't speak the language. They were there, and they saw a lot of artists paint different. There were guys, women, and then this young woman from Spain, and she was painting. And then there's this dude who just is a worker, and he comes and he looks at her, and he takes a brush from her, and he makes a dot in her piece, in her mural. Yeah. And then smiles at her because he wanted a reaction. He wanted to flirt. And she was just, stone-faced and tried to find me. And I said, well, you should have taken a photo of him because I don't know. Now we have to find him. So then we took the guy, his boss, and we went to all the guys and I said, show me who it was. Because this.
And did you find him?
We didn't find him anymore, and she said she wasn't sure, and that's the thing. But it's stuff like this, it's little things, and it still happens. So that's what I'm saying. The numbers are better. The problem is not better. It maybe is better, but it's still shit. And I still think, even now, last year I worked in Chemnitz, which is a city that's, when you look at the votes, how Chemnitz people in Germany voted, they voted very, very clearly in favor of the far right wing. So not in favor of people that look like me, not in favor of migrants like my father, even though they, but they think they are scared of anyone who doesn't look German. And I was there to do artist residency for 3 weeks, and I was scared of those scared people. I didn't see myself equipped to spend 3 weeks there with, I told you, my underlying aggression. I thought, no, it's going to trigger the worst in me. And then I cannot paint something nice. Then I cannot paint something that is hopeful, because then I paint my fear. And then I paint big middle fingers. And that's not why I got into the art. I don't want to paint the negative. I don't want to paint a bridge, not the negative, just a bridge to emotions. So I'm aware that there's a lot of dark, negative, unwelcoming energy.
And you know what? That's the reason why this podcast exists, because I feel that in this period, something, some negative energy is coming along. We see what's happening around us, not only for the leaders that are coming up, that are what they are, but also the wars that are coming up, and all these negative things that we're feeling. And that's why I said we're in this period, and that's why I want to talk with the artists which have this, what you're just saying right now, and this is the answer. And I think that as artists, probably we need to shout it out more. You see, you were saying this project here, Emigrarte, is about immigration, but don't let the people forget. For example, here in Italy, that in the beginning of the 19th century, we've been migrants all around the world, and we have, as Italians, our grandfathers had a really hard time with all of this stuff, and males, imagine the females,
right.
How they were. So we want the people that visits these murals to open their minds and to remember that we were migrants, and so all of us are migrants are on this planet.
Yeah.
So there is microphone.
Yeah, it's true. That's why it was not very hard for you to convince me to come. I really love the aspect of starting with yourself. Be a little bit more humble. We have been economic migrants as well in the past. Speaking about the West, the European powerhouses. Germany was. It's a beautiful story. I have to tell you real quick, because you told me about the people traveling to Ellis Island and all. And there's one thing that I thought is really cute. Actually, cute piece of knowledge. There's one big group of people who migrated to Iceland. That's the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another huge group of people who migrated to Iceland, and that was German women. It was after World War II. It was especially with, it's all linked to one boat, the Esja, that was the name of the boat. And it was 300 German women who escaped poverty and the lack of eligible men, because most of them died in the war or got disabilities and were not considered eligible husbands, or they were imprisoned in the East. So there was a newspaper article by the Association of the Farmers in the north of Ireland, because they said, we don't have enough women. Our women went back with the GIs, with the US Americans. After World War II ended, the GIs left, and they took a lot of young women with them who looked for new opportunities. And so they were missing women. In Germany, there were too many. So they got on a boat, and they were the biggest group of migrants, except from the Vikings, to ever come upon the island that's Iceland.
Really?
Yeah, and it's so bizarre. It's kind of cute, and nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it's not so far away, as a story. And and it's kind of this thing, this idea that one owns a land is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And we've been our bodies are designed to fit a nomadic lifestyle, to move from one source to the next source of resources. And basically, really, there is one really interesting book, and I'm sure you know it, Sapiens by Harari. And Sapiens really explained a lot of things anthropologically that I felt, but I couldn't put into words. And it talks about the fact that actually we were so much more flexible until we started growing weeds and until we started growing crops. Because we were hunters and gatherers for so long, and the moment we started to grow a field of wheat, that's the moment we started to build a fence, and that's the
Private
moment
property.
exactly. That's the moment we started to, build defenses, and that was a whole different thing. And that really is the main thing is that. I have to tell you, it's a weird story, but I actually dislike wheat so much. I try not to eat bread
Really?
because this is the real root of this is the cause of so much horror and gatekeeping and fence building and and it's a really absurd way. But I think if you read the book, maybe you will agree.
Yeah. I never thought it that way, but it makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense. Absolutely.
It's the dictator. It dictated where we live and what other plants grow there too, because it wants to be kept monoculture and stuff. And also it doesn't like certain insects. So it is very dictating the everything. So in the end, we're controlled by plants. Yes, we're no control. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, we're controlled by plants. I never thought about it.
Scary.
There was a period I used to draw anthropomorphic trees with human being figures. So,
Maybe.
See, probably
Early.
You lit a light on my past.
Yes. Yeah. You knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, but also again, thank you for inviting me here, and maybe. Or I hope that the two of us can also work out a good translation for the message I want to leave here. Yeah. Because the message for me is basically the words are more important than the drawing, the piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for words. I think they are what inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
Books, literature, and lyrics have always inspired me more than visual, any sort of depiction. It was always song lyrics and quotes from books. They shaped my life, and it's just not enough. If I go to a wall and I only put some poetic thought in writing, people will not take it in. They will see words and they will think, oh, that's the ratio. That's ratio. I'm already off. I had a 9 to 5. I had enough of words. I did emails. I've had enough. I only want to see something entertaining. So I cannot put them into a position where they have to digest something that they don't want. They will not keep it in. They will throw it out immediately. But if I trick them, it's like the little bit of medicine and the sugar. If I give them sugar, and I mean something really sweet, I mean really cute eyes, I mean something they can see and be like, oh, that's cute. Oh, those eyes are pretty. Oh, they look so real. I want to know more about this. Then I trick them, and then they see, oh yeah, okay, I see someone use symbols. I don't know what they mean. And then they look for the meaning, and then they find the message, and then I got them. That's what I'm like. Yes, that's my subversive political intervention.
Nice. I like that. I like that sugar in the eyes.
Yes, they are very sweet.
Yeah, they are. Actually,
They are.
the eyes of your wall you've done here really are sugar.
Yeah, I try my best, and I try to make them matter to the people who see them by adding this little fact that I paint the reflection of the place they look at.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are there, they might not know it, but they might feel that it really is
It's
something.
site-specific.
It's so site specific, and I think that does add to people knowing this is not something I copy pasted. This is not something that's been recreated 10 times. No, it's really singular. It's there, and that's why it's relevant, and that's why a mural by me is basically giving identity to this place and for this place. And and really usually in the message language that is communicated there. That's why I also need the slang.
Yeah, the local.
Exactly.
In fact, you know, we were talking because we are in Abruzzo. There is a dialect here. We were thinking if writing it in Italian or in dialect.
Yeah.
But
You
no,
decide. Yeah, you decide.
Italian is better because
Yeah.
we hope that a lot of Italians come
Yeah.
here from all over Italy because this
Yeah.
is
No, I think you're on a. Of course, we can always only hope, but I think it's very inviting, and it's so interesting, the canvas that you have right now. You know, the town is a canvas,
Yeah.
and I see many more possibilities, and I think it's really also for European travelers or anyone who travels to Italy. It's so picturesque. It's so inviting, and for me, I travel so much, but I'm so sick of just seeing houses and houses and houses, and my eyes are so adjusted to see walls. So when I was here, my eyes really stretched. It was almost like muscles were like expanding, and we're like, oh my God, I can see so far. So I think it's, again, very therapeutic for city people to come to a place that is on some level ancient, and then it reminds you of stories, and then there is the view, and then there is the food. And so I think we don't have to go too far to find something so refreshing and an experience on so many levels for so many senses. And right now I actually have to say I'm so impressed by the flowers outside and the smells. So that adds absolutely to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Here there are a lot of
Yeah.
flowers. We were seeing before there was the jasmine,
Yes.
and that one in night it takes all the perfume comes
Yeah.
out in nighttime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's very pretty. So thank you.
Thanks to you. I don't know what time. Okay.
I think it's time to
yeah, it
finish
is.
my work.
It's time. Yeah, I'm painting too.
Yes,
so
I think
have
so
to-
too.
And I am really.
No, but
wet
I
slow as a
already
snail.
I said it's your city in some ways. It's so funny. I can only imagine. I think it's like this. Maybe for me in my project in Bayreuth, it's also the same where I'm the host. And so
where?
it's in Bayreuth. Bayreuth is a city that's known for the Wagner opera. Wagner is one of the composers, the old school composers in Germany. And there I have this I curate for a place called Liebesbier, and it's a hotel and a restaurant. And I've had over 70 artists come there, and I always also paint, but just like you, when you're the host, you know, your guests, you try to be there for the guests, and then later you work.
Exactly.
It's like this. So I understand, but it's I think it's really good what you're doing, and it's very good that people are supporting it. And so far, it's a shame I don't speak more languages, but today too there were very cute elderly people communicating with this international signal of thumbs up. So I like that. I thought it was very sweet. So
They wanted to show their appreciation on your work.
yes, I'm glad.
Yeah, no, your work is absolutely wonderful. I
Thank
love
you.
it. And I think it's gonna be, and your work is in the position where it is. I invite all of you to come here and look at Hera's work. It's really, it's sweet, as you say, as sugar. If you want some dose of sugar,
Yeah.
for your eyes.
Exactly, but then it's the message.
But then the message will
Yeah, but
trick you.
I think the message is, I think, something that we agree is something you should be remembered.
Absolutely.
So every once in a while. So it's bittersweet, maybe.
No, it is because the people we're not hiding it here. The Fil Rouge, all the project is on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so. When you come here to see these paintings, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
In fact, it happened that some elderly people, unfortunately, not the young, but some elderly people in front of some mural, they cried
Yeah, I can see
because
that.
it remembered their story.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think it's also interesting because it is a global one, and because you were talking about Italians emigrating, but I'm also thinking of I used the symbol of birds of migration, and the birds they're always on the move.
Yeah.
And they're always on the move, and so they see so much and they're never really home. They're there for a little bit and then they build a nest and then they go back, and it's this back and forth, and it's really this in between worlds, because this whole thing of emigration, it doesn't end when you leave. You carry parts of your home and identity with you, and the strings aren't tied, they're always connected, and then you leave somebody at home and then you think, what if I had stayed? Or so it's something that's it's within us, and we have to come to terms with it. And I think if we solve the problem, the heaviness of the whole being homesick, and then also being sick of home, the both sides. If you want to leave, and then but you also want to stay home. All this it's something. It's very essential to the human mind, I think. Yeah. It's a very deep thought process, and to find a solution for this, I think that means growth. So it's a good concept to remind people we're not the first ones to feel a little bit discomfort with this theme, and we're not the first ones scared of newcomers. We're also not the first ones maybe scared of having to leave at some point. It's always been there through generations and generations. Yeah.
Always. I mean, we Italians, we are the first ones. Migration since before the Romans.
Yeah.
The Romans were migrants.
They were. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and what we would like to is that the people that look at these works understand that putting their feet in the shoes of the other is an exercise that would help everyone being less Nazi, as the girl that you were talking about there, because she felt that was her territory. And
exactly.
You, dark-haired girl, why are you invading my space?
Yes. It'd be really funny if I then took the mask off. And I'm Claudia Schiffer. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, I can't do that. Not yet.
No. I prefer you like this.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Maro.
Thanks to you. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you very much for participating in this podcast. And I hope to see you
somewhere in the
world. Like migrants,
Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, and
bye.
Cheers and have a good day. Ciao a tutti, ci vediamo alla prossima.